for coming to our event tonight, a collaborative event put on by De La Tierra Collaborative and as well as Taos Soil and Water and USDA NRCS and of course the New Mexico Department of Agriculture. Today we're going to talk about how to access soil health funding through the NMDA Healthy Soils program. My name is Jessie, I work with TCEDC, and I'm just going to introduce the agenda and how we're going to walk through the evening. All right, so today's agenda is, of course, starting with dinner. Hope you got some pozole. A round of applause for the wonderful humans that made us pozole. Thank you so much. And then we're going to hear from Dean Bruce. He's on with us on Zoom today due to the weather and coming up through the canyon, but we're really excited to have him in any shape or form, and he's going to talk about a basic overview of the program. So some of you in the room have done the program before, perhaps some of you it's new, and he'll give you an overview of those details. Then we'll hear from Vernon Mirabal from NRCS here in town. And then we'll hear from Peter Vigil and Tyler Zander with Taos Soil and Water. And then we'll hear from Mercedes Rodriguez, who's the Executive Director of Taos County Economic Development Corporation. And each person who we're hearing from today can be a part of this process of you getting money for soil health projects. Whether it's conservation planning or getting you connected to contractors or sponsoring your project, or helping you get a UEI number if you want to get a lot of money for your project. We are all here to help. Something that I think is really convenient about that is that we are all 3.3 miles away from each other. So you could visit us all in one day and in less than 10 minutes if you wanted. That would be a very quick visit. But all right, so first I'm going to hand over the virtual mic to you, Dean, and have your slides here. So take it away.
Okay, thank you very much, and again, thank everyone for allowing me to join virtually for tonight's meeting. Wasn't able to make it in person, but that won't stop me at a later date if there's a need for me to head up north and visit with some of the producers up there or some of these eligible entities. But I'll go ahead and get started on tonight's presentation on the Healthy Soil Program. So you can go to the next slide and we'll kind of get started. Just a basic introduction of what is soil health. And so, a lot of people have a lot of different versions of what they feel is soil health. This particular definition came from USDA NRCS, and it said the continued capacity of the soil to function as a vital living ecosystem that sustains plants, animals, and humans. And I think that pretty much catches it. And so, when we think about soil health, it's just the ability of the soil to function function in a way that's going to provide ecosystem services to all of us. And so, next slide, please. But why does it matter to us? When we think about soil health, first we have to decide why we want to improve soil health and what particular aspect of soil health we're looking to improve. But soil health matters in a multitude of ways. The ones I put on the screen here are by far not all of them, but one of the ways we measure and gauge soil health is the ability of the soil to absorb and store water. And I think that's one of the most critical ones, is the ability to store water, because as we store water, we can then increase plant life, increase organism life that lives in the soil, and therefore, again, creating that cycle that continues to build soil health. But also it helps to sustain a diverse, productive plant and animal life, provides physical stability to support plant roots, and then storing and transforming and cycling nutrients. And so, again, that's not a comprehensive list at all as far as why soil health matters, but I just want to kind of get your minds thinking about, if you have a piece of land that you're managing or that you own, why does soil health matter to you? And as you begin to think about applying for a grant, that's one of the things that needs to be in the back of your mind is why do I want to improve soil health and what am I looking to get out of that with this grant project? So next slide, please. So just a little bit of history about NMDA's Healthy Soil Program. It was created in 2019 in response to the Healthy Soil Act. That act was a grassroots effort with several entities. The New Mexico Healthy Soil Working Group was one of the primary drivers behind the act, and so we want to give a shout out to them. But the purpose of the program is to promote and support farming and ranching systems and other forms of land management that increase soil organic matter, aggregate stability, microbiology, and water retention to improve the health, yield, and profitability of the soils of the state. There's several aspects of the Healthy Soil Program. The one I'm going to focus on tonight, of course, is the grants, and these are grants for on-the-ground soil health improvement. Next slide, please. Okay, so the backbone behind the Healthy Soil Program, and also the backbone behind your project, if you choose to apply for a project, are the 5 soil health principles. Depending on what magazine you may read or what internet site you're on, there may be 4 soil health principles, there may be 6 soil health principles, but the Act specifically names these 5 soil health principles. And so as you're beginning to create a project in your mind, you need to determine which of these soil health principles you're going to focus on. But as I begin to talk about them, I think you're going to realize that as you begin to incorporate one soil health principle, you're likely to incorporate more than one soil health principle because they're all pretty much tied together. But the first one is keeping the soil covered. This is critical for erosion control, maintaining a stable temperature for your plants, and also your soil microorganisms. So some of the practices you might think about doing if you're looking to keep your soil covered, of course you can plant a cover crop when you don't have an active cash crop growing. You can leave crop residue in the field to decompose and build up organic matter over time. One of the things that you can do on rangeland, if you're an individual that has access to rangeland, is manage your grazing in a way that's going to maintain soil cover with the grasses and forbs and stuff that are on your rangeland. Soil health principle number 2. Minimizing disturbance on cropland and minimizing external inputs. This is the soil health principle where, of course, we want to minimize that tillage on cropland. We want to reduce as much disturbance on cropland as possible. And again, when we look at rangeland, we want to graze at an intensity that will not disturb the land any more than we have to while still maintaining our production with our livestock. I also think about this, when we think about minimizing external inputs. This is minimizing the amount of inputs, whatever that input may be. It could be feed, it could be fertilizer, it could be, we try to limit the amount of course, pesticides or any chemicals that we put on, but it's limiting anything outside of the farm or ranch that you have to bring on to maintain production. So we want to basically keep everything internal, I guess you could call it, so that you're not having to bring anything externally onto your operation to maintain production. Then, of course, soil health principle number 3, maximize biodiversity. This is where we want to aim to grow as many different types of plants as possible on the land that we're managing so that we can have different rooting zones, different, maybe it's you're looking at pollinator habitat or something like that. You want to try to aim for having as many different plants growing as possible to cover the entire season. But this could also be changing up your crop rotation to adding different crops into your crop rotation for your cash crops. And so anything to add different diversity, different rooting depths of your crops, different flowering seasons, things like that. We want to maximize that biodiversity. And then number 4, maintaining a living root. So the goal behind this particular soil health principle is that we want to try to have a living root in the ground for as much of the year as possible. I tend to think of living roots kind of very simplistically, but I think of them as straws that allow moisture into the ground. And so the more roots we can have, the more moisture we can take into the ground. And but also there's the microbiological impacts of having different rooting depths in the ground and stuff like that. But we want to try to have a growing crop or a living root in the ground during the longest part of the year as possible. I know we're not always going to have a living root, but we may have a dormant root, but it still serves the same purpose as a living root. And then, of course, integrating animals into land management. That is the soil health principle number 5. And this doesn't just include grazing animals. This also includes birds, beneficial insects, and keystone species such as earthworms. And so some of the ways you may do this, of course, grazing your crop residues. If you have cropland and you don't traditionally graze, your crop residue on your cropland, maybe you can incorporate some livestock onto your cropland to graze those residues to provide some additional fertility to your cropland. You can also incorporate bale grazing. Bale grazing is a strategic method of placing bales in either cropland or rangeland, grazing them with either cattle, sheep, goats, whatever it may be, and then removing the animals to allow that residue to decompose as over time and again build up that organic matter. And then you could plant pollinator habitat, again, to increase the pollination of, say, maybe your vegetable crops or something like that. And so again, as you start to think about developing a project, you'll need to address at least one of these soil health principles, and likely it's going to be more as you develop your project. So next slide, please. So this is a slide I want to everyone in the room to pay attention to, because there's 2 different application types, 2 different applicants that can apply for this. On the left-hand side of your screen, we have the eligible entities. These are defined in the Act as local governmental entities with proven land management capacity to support healthy soil. And specifically named in the Act are pueblos, tribes, and nations, Acequias, land grants, soil and water conservation districts, and NMSU Cooperative Extension Service, as well as other governmental parties meeting the above definition of an eligible entity. So any of these entities, if they have the capacity and the governance structure to take on a project, can apply for up to $100,000. Okay, that $100,000 will include mileage and an administrative fee that you can use for administering the grant itself. And however, to get to that $100,000, you will have to have a unique entity identifier, which I believe will be discussed later on in the agenda. But we definitely want to see different entities apply for this. And again, I will mention that if barring any snowstorms or anything, if you're a member of one of these entities and you would like me to come up there and kind of help you out with designing a project, looking at some technical questions on a project, I'd be more than happy to come up there and help you design a project that will fit within the guardrails of the Healthy Soil Program. But then there's also likely going to be quite a few in the room tonight that fit under the individual applicant category. These are simply farmers, ranchers, other land managers that can apply for the program. We can also have businesses or nonprofits. However, they do have to have a connection to the land. But individual applicants have a little bit of extra work that they have to do. And one of the first things that they have to do is they actually have to complete conservation planning with USDA NRCS. And so I think Vernon's going to talk here in a little bit, and he's going to be your primary point of contact to complete conservation planning. Now, don't let that scare you, because you don't actually have to establish farm records with your USDA service center. If that's something that you don't want to do, you don't have to establish farm records. We have created a template that NRCS can use to develop a conservation plan for you as an individual. And all that does is basically identify the resource concerns that exist. Maybe it's soil erosion, maybe you have compaction issues, maybe you have fertility issues, things like that. That's what conservation planning will do. It will help you work with a planner to identify those things that you're going to improve, specifically related to soil health. And then the next thing you'll have to do as an individual applicant is to secure project sponsorship from either a soil and water conservation district, which would be Taos, SWCD probably for most of you, or a tribal government. So if you're a member of a tribal government, whether it's a Pueblo tribe or nation, you have the option to go through your tribal government as your project sponsor, or you could go through your soil and water conservation district as your project sponsor. They will basically serve as the liaison between you and NMDA. They'll handle all the financial aspects of the program as far as getting you reimbursed for your practices and things like that. And so that's what they'll do, is they'll serve as that. And so there's the two different applicant types. As an individual, and there's a reason for this $24,999.99, but I'm not going to go into it tonight, but basically that is the maximum you could apply for. So that does include mileage, as well as an administrative fee that will go to the project sponsor. So if you go through your SWCD or your tribal government, they will get an administrative fee that will be paid to them to help you administer your grant. Next slide, please. So one thing I want to do is point you towards a website, and there's going to be a link here at the end of the presentation, but all these little dots on this map are on our website, and it's an interactive map where you can click on the different dots, and it will give you an overview of their project, where it was located. And so just to kind of give you an idea of some of the projects that have been completed in the past. I encourage you to visit the NMDA Healthy Soil Program website. Take a look at this interactive map, and like I said, you just click on one of the dots. The red dots are for those eligible entity projects, and the turquoise dots are for the individual applicants. And so you can click around all around the state, see what people are doing to improve soil health, and just maybe kind of give you some ideas on how to develop a project of your own. Next slide, please. These are just some of the sample projects. I mean, this is by far not a complete list of the things we've funded in the past, but we have a tremendous interest in planting cover crops. These can be fall cover crops, spring cover crops, but there's a tremendous interest in this, and I think it's a great way to build organic matter, improve your water infiltration, things of that nature. We also have a lot of individuals that are establishing pollinator habitat just to improve the overall pollination of their cash crops, or just to provide that habitat just in general. We've also had individuals that have applied biochar, compost, other soil amendments. Excuse me. So there's just a few things right there that we've done on cropland. Again, not a complete list, but kind of maybe give you some ideas on what you may want to do on your own operation. Next slide, please. So for rangeland, we have people that are starting an intensive grazing system, to allow increased rest recovery periods on their rangeland. The bottom of your screen is bale grazing, and again, I mentioned that before. Basically, this is placing bales out to feed your cattle, sheep, goats, and then you leave about 25% residue. And what that residue does is it increases your moisture holding capacity. It breaks down, improves your organic matter content, and you can kind of see the progression on those three pictures right there, and did quite a bit of good on that one. Now over there on the left-hand side of the screen, we have some individuals on my side of the state, in eastern New Mexico, that are using what they call subsoiling to break up compaction layers on rangeland and old CRP lands and things like that. And basically what they do is they take a straight shank ripper and they run it through the rangeland, and it breaks up any compaction layer that may exist to allow increased water infiltration, stimulate root growth, and things like that. So those are just some of the sample projects that we've done on rangeland. We've helped individuals put in fence, pipeline, livestock watering facilities to improve their grazing distribution of their livestock. So next slide, please. The biggest improvement, and this is one thing I want everybody to key in on. Up until this point, these grants have only been 10 months long. And so this is a huge improvement. The projects now will be approximately 15 months long. They will start next July, and they will end in September 30th of 2026. So that's going to give you well over a year to complete all your projects, all your activities. And so as you're beginning to plan this within kind of in your mind, just think about the fact that it's going to run from about mid-July all the way of 2025 all the way until September 30th of 2026. So that gives you ample time to do, maybe a fall cover crop, a spring cover crop, maybe a summer cover crop, however you want to look at it. But it gives you plenty of time to do increased activities related to soil health. And so this is a major improvement in our program, largely in part due to the Land of Enchantment Fund that was passed last year. This allows us to have multi-year funding, and so it is a tremendous benefit to you as the producers and also eligible entities if you look to apply for one of these grants. It just gives you that much more time to implement all of the activities that you may want to do. So next slide, please. So the projects can occur basically anywhere in New Mexico. Any type of operation, cropland, rangeland, irrigated pasture, forest land, orchards, vineyards, gardens. These can be market gardens. This could be subsistence gardens, community gardens, backyard gardens. We'll take all comers when it comes to any type of agriculture land in New Mexico. Any type of ownership, you can own it, you can lease it, you can manage it on someone else's behalf, but you must have landowner permission to implement any soil health project on land that you do not own. And also, it comes in all sizes. Projects can be measured in acres or square feet. We've funded projects probably as little as 100 square feet all the way up to, say, 25,000 acres. And so we definitely encourage anyone and everyone that has production ag, whether it's a backyard garden or, a full-scale, market garden, or, you're raising hay or whatever it may be. We encourage any and all applicants to take a look at the program, because it doesn't matter the size of your operation. We'll take everyone. So next slide, please. The way you will need to start the application process, of course, we do ask you to visit our website. Our website is basically divided into two sections. The first section you can go to is if you're an eligible entity applying for that. Again, Those are pueblos, tribes, nations, land grants, Acequias, soil and water conservation districts, NMSU Cooperative Extension Service. So the website, you'll click on eligible entity application, it'll take you there, and it'll provide you all the information you need to begin the process. And then we have the individual applicant part, which is again those, farmers, ranchers, land managers. The website will take you to another portion that will provide all the information you need to apply. But the thing you need to think about now, especially if you're an individual applicant, is reaching out to your local NRCS office and starting the process of conservation planning. That's the critical component for you as an individual, is to start conservation planning as early in the process as possible. One, because that allows NRCS plenty of time to work with you and develop a quality plan. And then it also allows you time to research how much it's going to cost to implement that, things of that nature. But that's the first thing you as an individual applicant, if you're looking to apply, is to reach out to NRCS. But then also reach out to your prospective project sponsor, whether that is Taos SWCD, or again, maybe it's your tribal government. Reach out to them, let them know you're looking to apply for a Healthy Soil Program grant, and just kind of see what their process will be. They will likely ask you to show up at a meeting and kind of describe your project and just let them know, build that relationship with your project sponsor, and do that as soon as possible. The actual online application will launch on January 15th. So it'll become live on January 15th. So you can't actually enter anything into the system yet. So that gives you plenty of time to start planning, what you want to do, how you want to do it, when you want to do it. Those are all critical elements to putting together a quality grant application. The grant application needs to be finalized and submitted by March 19th at noon. And so you'll have plenty of time to work on it online, but you also have plenty of time right now, again, to reach out to NRCS, start the conservation planning process, and develop a really good application based on the amount of time you put into the planning and preparation of it. Next slide, please. So this is the final slide. If you take your phone, that's a little QR code that you can register to attend our webinar tomorrow. For eligible entities, we're having a Zoom webinar at 10 a.m. To kind of go over a little bit more specifics about the application process. And then at 3:30 in the afternoon, we're going to have the individual applicant webinar. 3 o'clock in the afternoon, we're going to have the individual applicant webinar, and we'll walk you through the process on how to apply as an individual applicant. Also, there's the website for the Healthy Soil Program. But the one thing I do want to kind of, as I finish up tonight, they kind of asked me what are some of the do's and don'ts, or what some tips and tricks to put together a quality application. Well, I've already mentioned it. The first thing you want to do is get with your NRCS office as soon as possible. Develop that conservation plan. On our website, we have planning templates for cropland and rangeland, and so you can download those. Vernon can download those. It's not a problem. So the one thing I would suggest is spend time with NRCS, listen to them, take some of their advice, and really get that dialogue going to determine what would be best for your land. When you're actually writing the application itself, the grant application itself, I don't actually evaluate any of them. I just kind of get to tell you what's the best practice, and what I've seen in the past is just spend time telling us, what you want to do, and why you feel that's going to be the best practice to improve soil health on your land. And so, you know, people get scared of writing grants. Actually, I'm really kind of a simple guy myself. I prefer, you know, just somebody to just tell me what they're going to do, how they're going to do it, when they're going to do it, and why it's going to improve soil health on their operation. And so, other than that, you know, like I said, build that relationship with your project sponsor early. If that happens to be Taos SWCD, they have a wealth of information within that SWCD that they can share with you, that they can help you put together a quality grant application, and so I would encourage you to visit with them. And then I'll put my specific contact information in the chat here in just a second, and you're welcome to share it with anybody. You can pretty much call me, email me, text me, and you know, whenever, and if for some reason I don't answer right away, I will get back to you. But I'd be happy to help anyone and everyone up in the Taos area that would like assistance on developing a grant application for the Healthy Soil Program. And so, again, I'd be happy to, you know, make a trip up there and help you out. And I'll kind of leave it there for questions. If we have time for questions now, or if y'all want to wait to the end, I'm good either way.
Thank you, Dean. I think we could take maybe 2 questions. If anyone has immediate burning questions. Yes, Carlos.
Can you save the application and come back and finish it later online?
Can you save the application and come back and finish it later online?
Yes, you can. You just basically create a login, and the application, I know it has a save button. It's supposed to be on autosave, but you would be better off to hit that save button within the application itself. But you can work on it for 10 minutes, come back to it whenever, and as long as it is submitted prior to that March 19th deadline, then you're good to go. But you can come back to it as many times as you want.
Great question, Carlos. One more question, yes.
I was just curious, like, roughly how many applications they might receive, and like what percentage of that actually get approved.
Great question. Could you hear that, or should I repeat it?
Yeah, please repeat it.
Okay, yeah, so we had a member in the audience asking how many applications do you receive on average, and then how many applications are generally accepted?
Last year, I believe we received just a little bit over 80 applications for individual applicants, and we were able to fund, I think, 56 of those. I would have to double check those numbers, but it was a little over 50 applications that were funded, and we received 80 applications. And I will tell you, the reason most applications are rejected is because they're not complete. There is a list on our website that lists everything you need to have a completed application, and it's actually pretty simple. You have to have your conservation plan that you work with NRCS on. You have to have your budget timeline template, and then you have to have your letter of support from your project sponsor, and then your a soil map of your place. And those are the 4 critical documents. And as long as you have those and you actually complete the entire application, you'll be eligible for, you'll be evaluated. But most of the applications that we did not fund were because they failed to submit all of the required documents. And so a complete listing of those is on the website. And so I would encourage you to visit our website. Everything will fully go live on the website after the webinars tomorrow, with the exception of the application. But you'll have access to all of the information that you may need to apply for the program tomorrow after the webinars. And so, but it has a full list, and if you just follow the list and make sure you submit everything that's required, you will definitely be evaluated. But like I said, the majority of people that we did not fund were because they failed to submit everything that they needed to. And so if I could finish with one thing, it's just double check that you have all the required documents submitted and upload it as required. And that'll put you ahead of quite a few people, because I know we're still going to have people in the application period that do not submit all their documents, and so that'll put you ahead of them for sure.
Thank you, Dean, and thank you to all the questions. We're going to keep on moving if that's okay, but hold on to that question because we'll have more time at the end. One of the things I failed to mention with the agenda is that a really exciting part of this event is that we have 3 examples of funded soil projects in the past. So really excited to hear from those folks, and they were all in Taos County. So one thing we're trying to encourage with this event is to get to know each other, go around the room, introduce yourself to not only the important people who will be speaking today, but also other folks in the community who are interested in soil health. So without further ado, Vernon, you're up. Vernon with NRCS. Can I get a round of applause?
Yeah.
Slides, you can just do that button right there.
All right. I guess first off, thank you for the dinner. It was great. Pozole was perfect on a cold night like this. So again, round of applause for all the cooks. So when I first saw the agenda, I was actually pretty excited. The reason for that is we had Dean Bruce, who's the head of the program, to present, so I thought that was awesome. And there's actually some questions, and I took a photo of some couple slides. So for those that don't know me, my name is Vernon Mirabal. I'm the district conservationist for Team 3. Team 3 includes all the NRCS offices in Taos County, Santa Fe County, and Rio Arriba County. So the New Mexico Department of the Ag Healthy Soils Grant, the big take-home message is contact NRCS as soon as possible. Right now, in Taos, we have a 3-person office, and all those 3 folks are assigned to Hermit's Peak, Calf Canyon. They're doing rehabilitation efforts. So if we don't have staff, or if we don't have staff, then we're very limited on how we can assist you and how we can provide a quality plan. So get to us as soon as possible. I know the deadline said like March 19th to apply, so get in contact with us like no later than March 1st. If you wait, I mean, like last year we got, I think Dean said something like 80 applications, and if you notice that map of all the selected contracts, most of it was within Rio Arriba, Taos, and Santa Fe. So it definitely did affect our workload. So make sure you apply and reach out to us as soon as possible. What I was thinking that could expedite the process is I have my email there, vernomirabal@usda.gov. Shoot me an email, if possible, a map, a Google Earth image of your county and acreage, a very brief write-up of what your operation is about, your contact information, cell phone number, best way to get hold of you, and then the possible practices you're thinking of applying for. The reason we're kind of going above and beyond requiring this is, again, to expedite the process. And again, this spring, a lot of our staff will be at the Hermit's Peak Calf Canyon rehabilitation efforts. So I'll be very limited on the staff I have available for the different NRCS offices. So by having this information emailed to me beforehand, I can kind of fine tune it a little bit as far as, okay, well, this is like a range application. I can send this staff member out there. This is irrigated application or a soil health application. I can send this staff member up there. So again, the big thing is try to get in contact with us no later than the first part of March, and we'll do our best to get out there. And again, kind of like Dean kind of related to is, the more time you spend on your application, the more time we spend on it, which means a more quality application. And I mean, you can attest to it. Last year we were doing assessments probably like 4 or 5 assessments on the very last 2 days. So it was definitely an interesting process.
Vernon, would
Yes.
they contact you tomorrow?
Yeah, they could contact me tomorrow. I mean, the earlier the better. Like I said, right now my staff is at Hermit's Peak Calf Canyon. They're not plan to be back into the office till mid-December, depending on the snowfall. But again, probably mid-February, they can go right back and be out there doing rehabilitation plans to meet the FEMA deadlines and that sort of thing. So again, our staff is very limited, so the sooner you get with us, the better. Does anybody have any questions on this slide here? Yeah.
Your application, the application, if it applies to more than one of the soil health principles, does that complicate it, or should we just stick to one item?
No, you can include all 5 soil health principles. The big thing is like us getting out there and doing what we need to do. I know you reached out to us way ahead of time, and like I said, when my staff gets back mid-December, weather dependent, they're going to start knocking out some of these soil health applications that we've already received, or some of the assistance requests that we've already received from some of our producers. Are there any other questions on this slide? Okay, my presentation is very short. I have a second slide here, and this is just pushing some of the NRCS programs. Kind of our bread and butter with NRCS is the Environmental Quality Incentive Program. The deadline to apply for that is actually November 8th. So my first slide had the email. If anybody's interested, I can definitely shoot you an email with application. With that, it's an incentive program. There's no minimum acreage, no maximum acreage, and our contracts vary in cost as far as dollars allocated per contract from anywhere to a couple $100s to a farm bill cap limit of $400,000 per individual. So we're definitely spending a whole lot of money out there. Some of the practices included within the ECO program is popular practices such as high tunnel, cover crop, drip systems, pasture and hayland planting, pollinator habitat, soil testing, range planting, brush control, forest land improvement. And again, the deadline to apply for this is this Friday, basically. If anybody has any interest in any of these programs, definitely shoot me an email. I can email you an application. Once you return your application, you're in our system, and then we'll, again, when my staff gets back, we'll start scheduling folks to do field visits and see how we can be of any assistance. I know it's a quick turnaround time, but that's how our programs go, basically. The other application we have is Act Now Climate Smart. The deadline to apply for that is February 7th. It's a new program, and that the turnaround process, usually government contracts kind of take a little bit of time. With Climate Smart Act Now, we have 30 days to act. So basically, you submit your application. We have 30 days to do a field assessment, to rank your project, to come up with a cost estimate, and to develop a contract and deliver that contract. So that's a really, really quick turnaround. This year for Taos County, well, actually Team 3, which is Taos, Rio and Santa Fe County, will have $3.3 million allocated to these counties to spend to do practices such as cover crops, core practices, cover crops, pasture and hayland planting, forest land improvement. So those are the main cover crops. The big thing with that is we're trying to, again, cover the soil, make the soil healthier, but also prevent wildfires. Those are the 2 slides I had, and again, take home message, get in contact with us as soon as possible. Are there any questions? Yes, sir.
Besides establishing a conservation plan with your office, can an individual go to another sponsor to manage the money, such as TCEDC or Taos Soil and Water?
Yeah, so when it comes to the Healthy Soils Grant, our role is basically provide the technical guidance and help the producer develop the template, complete the template. And again, if you give us enough time, we could even take it a step further and help develop some of your soils maps and some of the other requirements attached to getting a good possibility of getting funded. With the NRCS programs, I mean, we're involved every step of the way. Your contract would be as an individual with the U.S. government, basically. Are there any other questions? All right, and again, I can't stress this enough, get in contact with us as soon as possible, this evening, tomorrow.
Now.
All right, now. All right, appreciate it, thank you very much.
next is Peter and Tyler, coming to talk to us about Taos Water's role in the process.
Who's first?
I'm the hype man for Peter, so I'm going to get you all fired up and he's going to take it home. So my name's Tyler Zander. I work at the Taos Soil and Water Conservation District. For those of you who don't know, it's right over that way, like Jesse showed on the map there. And yeah, so I guess I'm just going to be real quick as well. Like Dean mentioned, ultimately, if you're going to apply as an individual, you have to submit to us a request for a letter of support to be, for your application to be complete. Like Dean said, was one of the biggest obstacles in being a successful applicant. So I'm going to talk about a few other things you can do to make this, ultimately successful for you, and, well, interesting and fun, I suppose, too. So, just have a sense of what your goal is important. You have to envision some sort of end state that you're shooting for with managing your land. It seems like an obvious thing, but I think it's worth just kind of pointing out. Some people, mention that like healthy soil is their goal, but that's kind of more of just like an end state or like something you're pursuing. That enables you to do other things that are important to you, like have increased hay yields, like have healthier animals, like have, to be able to better utilize irrigation water and rainfall and things like that. So just a very basic thing there. Dean already covered 5 of these practices, the healthy soil principles. The one he didn't mention, but kind of is always part of it, is just your own personal context. Everybody's land and situation is going to be unique and different, and just recognizing that and running with that, and understanding how those principles relate to your specific situation. It's important to understand how to efficiently execute your plan. You have to have a goal in mind, and then also, like Dean mentioned, how are you going to do that? So those things include having the right equipment like we see here. There's a no-till drill, there's some electric fencing. Those are just 2 examples of having tools that make life a lot easier. And so you don't necessarily need to own these things. You don't necessarily need to ask for money through the grant to get them, but there are resources like this in Taos County here. Tomorrow night, Will's going to be having a workshop on mobile fencing and moving livestock with electric fencing. So, there's a lot of resources here that you can take advantage of, but it's good to be aware of them. Do you have the labor to accomplish what you're setting out to do? Just following up on the 6 principles of soil health, I kind of think of it as kind of like the Constitution. So people came up with the Constitution, and then over time we came up with all these amendments to the Constitution because we realized that they didn't really apply to everything. So some of the people who came up with this healthy soil principles, like Alan Williams and Gabe Brown, now have these other things which I just kind of found out about recently, and I found them really helpful. There's the 3 rules of adapted stewardship or adaptive grazing. If you have animals, that's really, I can't even say what they are off the top of my head because I've just been currently exposed to them, but I encourage people to look into that. And I think it helps you kind of come up with these goals and how you're going to achieve your goals. And then there's also the 4 ecosystem processes. I would encourage you all to make a splash with your activities. I don't think that's, just strangely, I don't think you're going to get funding for, teaching a cow to be an equestrian animal. But it's not a photoshopped photo as far as I know, it's a real thing. But a real thing on the right is, somebody. It was actually just over the border in Angel Fire, not in Taos County, but that's Pat Pacheco grazing cattle, mob grazing. That's something you can get funding for. That's something that he has chosen to do because it makes sense for his operation. Nobody's paying him to mob graze. It improves the land that he grazes on, and that's why he does it. The great thing about the Healthy Soils Grant is that you can kind of experiment with these things that you see other people doing, and it just provides kind of a less risk for you to get money to do it. Also understand what you're getting into. Grants include, reporting, paperwork, budgets. That's a stack of our, the Taos Water Conservation District has gotten, the Healthy Soils Grant for a few years now. That's our binder of paperwork from last year. It's like a giant phone book for about 100 people that planted cover crops through us. And there's the smaller binders, like the 100 soil tests that we pulled for that. The one on the right is the spreadsheet template for your coming up with your budget, which you have to submit in order to be considered. And then one thing that we help you with, I suppose, or we facilitate is, if you are selected, is making sure that you get reimbursed for your purchases. And so, we would like to see something like the invoice on the right rather than, a texted picture of a crumpled up receipt that's unintelligible on the left, because we have gotten stuff kind of similar to the thing on the left before, and that just, it creates more work for everybody. So the funny thing about being, organized with paperwork is that it's usually a different skill set than being creative with, agricultural practices, It's usually not the same person that has those similar gifts, So Carlos, you mentioned, can we get assistance with maybe the paperwork side of things, the budget, the reimbursements. You have to submit those to us, but I would encourage everybody to find people in your circle who are good at those things and, try and bring them aboard. Even if you're applying as an individual, I think, cooperating with other people is a great recipe for success. And it's essential and fun, in fact. So this is, I have the great fortune of seeing a lot of interesting things happen. Here's, a couple individual soil grantees, helping other people no-till drill some cover crop into a weed field, which they're using as a wind barrier and a way as a snow fence. It's incredibly impressive what people have done in this community as part of the Healthy Soils Grant. And the reason I am talking so fast is so that we can hear more from them, because I get a lot of inspiration and great ideas from all the people in this community doing really awesome things, and that makes my job really fun. So feel free to contact me about your journey here at any stage. Like Vernon said, the sooner the better. One thing that wasn't mentioned was that there is a kind of a mid-application deadline for people doing conservation, for people applying as individuals. So if you're going to do bale grazing or apply as an individual, like I think there's a February deadline for submitting, like online, on your online portal, submitting that to NMDA, before the March deadline. So that's just something to be very aware of. So yeah, I thought that was worth mentioning. But now, Peter, the district manager of Taos Soil and Water, is just going to talk a little bit more about what he would like to tell you about, kind of what's worked in the past and what we hope to see in future soil health applicants. So thanks for your time.
Good job. Oh, thank you. That really seemed like I ate too much pozole. Did you guys pay attention? What is March 16th or 19th, the deadline? What is it?
Soil Day.
No. It's the 78th day of the year in the Gregorian calendar. And it's usually the last day of winter in the Northern Hemisphere. St. Joseph's Day, National 3D Day, National Backyard Day, National Certified Nurse Day, National Let's Laugh Day, National Chocolate Caramel Day, National Poultry Day, National Agri-Culture Day, National Automatic Door Day, National Stretch Mark Day, International Read to Me Day. No, of course that's the deadline, okay? What's the first thing you need to do your soil health grant?
Call Vernon.
Conservation plan.
What is that, please? Why? Well, didn't you hear him? He's busy. We had a fire over the canyon that we're still recovering from. March. What kind of weather do we have here in March? Everybody. No. But what does it do in March? It blows. Okay? It's cold. If we have a blowdown, a squall of 2,000 acres, either on tribal land or private land, what are the soil conservation, the NRCS, what are they going to be doing? They're going to be in recovery efforts. Okay? So yes, you have to start early. The early bird gets the worm. Now, how do you work with a government employee? I'm a government employee. What do you work for? How do you work with the government? What's the first thing you do?
Bring him a cup of coffee.
You're cheating. Have a relationship with that office, okay? We are human beings. We like to interact with each other. We are not isolationists, okay? So yes, come on by. Mr. Vigil, I don't know what I want to do. Well, I'm going to tell you you're in trouble. But what are your values? That's why we have Tyler in this room, okay? You can call the office anytime and ask any kind, and dude, I've gotten worse questions. In the 25 years I've been doing this job, I've gotten way worse questions than I don't know what I want to do. You're lying to yourself if you say that, though, because everybody in this room tonight came here for a reason, because they had an inkling, or they have a plan, or they have a passion, or they have a desire to make the world a better place and make their land more productive, because that helps everyone. Now, I have a theory, and my theory is that the more cover we have on the planet, the more we can help Mother Earth regulate temperature. The more rain clouds might come by and give us a gift of moisture. The more bare the ground, the hotter it's going to get, because that heat is reflected back up into the atmosphere just like a mirror. So what you do today is probably the best thing you will ever do, is take care of terreno. That's the language in my culture for earth, for soil, for something that you cherish, you hate, it beats you up, but you go back again and again and again. So, you've got the NRCS puzzle down. What about NMDA? Do you just submit the application? Didn't they give you hints on their planning forms? You should be looking at that stuff like this weekend, unless you're busy going to the opera or something. You should be looking at those things and trying to decipher what they mean, because there's over 100 years of knowledge in the Department of Agriculture and the land-grant university, which was created by the Morrill Act in the 1800s to help agriculture flourish and thrive. Do you see where I'm going here with this? There is a partnership. It's a conservation partnership, and it is incomplete without you. NRCS is the standard of excellence for conservation planning, and have been since the Soil Conservation Service was created by Hugh Hammond Bennett in the early part of the century. The College of Home Economics and the Land Grant University is why you have a county agent. You all know who he is. His name is Will Duranko. If you want to know what to plant in El Bravo, he probably has a better idea than anybody else what works there, because they are a scientific university that has an ambassador in every county in New Mexico and every county all over the nation with local knowledge of what works. Use that tool. Is the cooperative extension an eligible entity?
Yes.
Yes. Ah, somebody's paying attention. So it's not just soil and water, it's not just Acequias, it's not just tribes. You have another place that you can go. All right, what does a soil and water do before I close? Boy, I gotta do my job better. How many have worked with the soil water before? All right, you have 2 baskets that you can get from. There's an individual basket that you guys are gonna have to come up with a plan, and that plan's gonna have to have sound principles and a conservation plan in order for our office to sign the letter of support. Do we just sign the letter of support just for the heck of signing the letter of support? That would make us a rubber stamp, and that's something that we weren't created to do. Now, if you don't have an individual project, we as an entity have been very successful, Tyler can vouch to this, about doing entity projects. What's the maximum amount an entity can apply for?
$100,000.
$100,000. $100,000 helps a lot of people. Now he said 100. That's just in 1 year. We've been doing that eligible entity grant probably for 4 or 5 years. That's the amount of people we reach that maybe can't get the conservation plan. Their acreage is smaller, okay? They need some help, some assistance for their tax dollars that they pay. So you have 2 baskets. You can do the individual, or you can participate in our entity program, okay? Please tell everyone, we like customers. When you show up at the office, do we say, there's Johnathan Hupp again. Wonder what he wants. Borrowed the soil probe though, and he returned it, so he's an honest guy. Now, do you know that that soil probe had been in my office probably for 10 to 15 years and was never used until Johnathan Hupp decided to do his soil health project and borrowed the soil probe. That's because we use a shovel. Okay? But that's what it was bought with tax dollars. So there's a taxpayer using it. Right? And that is what government is for. So it looks like you all get an A+. Okay? Last thing I want to say. Red flags. If somebody comes to my office at 11:45 on March 19th and wants me to peruse through their project and back it, as a loyal public employee that is the guardian of taxpayer dollars, I cannot do so. You have to make an allowable time to let the bureaucrat sink into what you're doing so he can back it up. Okay? One more thing. Remember, legible receipts. Because I can send in your coffee stain, chewing tobacco stain receipt to the New Mexico Department of Agriculture, but they will reject it. Not me. So make sure that what we always think is a good idea is get the receipt, make a copy of it. If you can scan it and make a PDF, fine. If you can't, we have staff that can take your receipts and turn them into PDFs for you, so then we can just Zoom email them to NMDA and you get your reimbursement faster. But that is the thing. There is another level, people, and you guys gotta step up to that level. And then we will all make a difference. Thank you.
Thanks, Peter. A very engaging way of speaking. I love to see every time. Yeah, so there's Taos and Water's part in this process. Next, we're going to hear from Mercedes Rodriguez, who is our executive director. And she's going to talk about what the UEI number is. Raise your hand if you know what it is. Great, so listen up. Important information.
Hi everyone, thank you for joining us in this snowy day. We thought we were going to see no one, but it's really glad to know that you guys are interested in your soil health and your land and in this community. So I got the boring part, so basically I think the most important thing I can stand up here and say is that TCDC has a resource center. The resource center, the staff to be able to help you guys fill out all of these. We have Peter Vigil, his staff, De La Tierra and all of our collaborative is wonderful. So you can come to any of us and any of us are going to take the time to help you guys with whatever processes you guys have. I think that making sure that you guys have, the proper paperwork is important, but it doesn't matter because we've got plenty of people to help you guys. So what is a UEI number? So it's a unique entity identification number. It's assigned, managed, and owned by the federal government. So if you guys as individuals for your businesses want to apply for any federal grants, you guys are going to need this UEI. Again, not that difficult to get, but it does take time. It used to take very little time. Right now it's taking between 15 and 30 days. So the sooner you guys can start applying for, the sooner you guys make sure that your I's are dotted, your T's are crossed, the faster we can make it. It's like Peter says, we can't make things happen at the last moment. As soon as you guys realize you need help, start realizing that there are funds out there for you guys to be able to apply for. There is federal money available. As soon as you realize that there is that, then get prepared for it. Let's get you guys in a row and make sure that you guys, are needing to apply for this UEI. It's for $25,000 or more. So if you guys are looking for less funds than that, you don't need it. But yeah, if there's $100,000 that you guys can apply for, you want 90, you want it all. So let's make sure we get there. What would I need to get one? So your business information. We've got a little handout, that we'll put out here for you guys to make sure that, again, everything is signed, dotted, and dated properly. Make sure that we're getting you guys where you guys need. At TCDC, we're also making sure that people are on our database and we're notifying you guys of funds out there. So, there's a newsletter that keeps going out so you guys are informed of funds that are available state and federal wise. So again, I think it's important, everyone who stood up here prior to me, it's all of this collaboration and everything we do is for you guys, and we want to make sure that our community is taken care of. By appointment only, Jesse, for the...
yeah, that will be on 2 slides.
There's another slide. Okay. So steps to get one. So estimate your project budget, register through SAMS.gov. Are you guys familiar with SAMS.gov and how to register on there? Again, you don't come and see, any of us in the collaborative. Submit all required documentation, get your 12-digit number, and submit your application. So if you're projecting to need $25,000 or more, that's when you need the unique entity identification number, SAM number, and SAM.gov. Again, it's a process. You're dealing with federal government, you're dealing with federal funds, it's a process. So you need to allow yourself the time that is needed to be able to do these things. There's another slide, Jesse? No. So now is Jesse's turn to talk about the TCDC Resource Center. Again, thank you guys. I welcome you guys to come to TCDC. We're an open door policy. We want to make sure that you guys are getting what you need when you need it so that we are a successful community. We rely on each other and make sure that we share the knowledge. Knowledge is wealth, and that's what we have here. Thank you guys for your presence and your time.
So the Resource Center, raise your hand if you've heard of the Resource Center. Hope to see more hands. Oh, okay, I saw more hands, that's good. Oh, and in the back, nice. Well, Flora, that doesn't count. So the TCEDC Resource Center is essentially myself and Abby and anyone else on the TCEDC staff. Abby is in the photo on the bottom. She's at the Regenerate conference right now, so couldn't make it. But essentially, we're here to help with any kinds of wading through the waters of paperwork. We can read over materials that you've already written and created, bounce back ideas, and then we also have a lot of wonderful books that Tyler gathered for us when he was with TCEDC, so it's a really nice space. We also have a scanner, so if you need to scan those receipts and Taos and Water's all booked up, you can come to us. One thing I wanted to point out on this one with the timeline for the UEI number, it can take up to 30 days to get your number back. So again, don't try the process 15 minutes before the due date. Another thing that I've heard from previously funded projects was that one of the hardest things for them to do when they were an entity applying was to find their document proving their founded date. Because if you've been around for hundreds of years, that might be under a few stacks of paper. So just wanted to point that one out. So next, the really exciting part of our agenda today is hearing from our past projects. So we're going to have Tobias Duncan and Kevin Whitman, who's online due to the snow, and then Johnathan Hupp as well. So round of applause for Tobias, who will join us first.
Hey, thanks. So I'm Tobias. I administer a cover cropping grant up in San Cristobal, and this is this next one will be our 4th year of doing it, and we worked out a lot of the bugs. It seems like a lot of paperwork, and it kind of is, but there's not any of it that's really all that tough. Once you kind of get going on the website, you just do the next thing, and do the next thing, and do the next thing, and pretty soon you're done. But the big thing is, as everybody's been telling you, right, is get the thing started as quickly as you can. The other thing is all these people are super accessible, right? Like Peter's accessible, Tyler's accessible, and Dean Bruce is very accessible. I call him all the time. He's kind of like it's a little cheat code for me. If I have something that I want to put in the grant and I'm not sure if it's going to sound ridiculous, I give him a call and we have a conversation about it. It's really that easy. So just to give you some idea of the change that you can have, this particular field had been fallow for 40 years. When I was a kid, we planted alfalfa and it came up beautifully. And then the alfalfa slowly died out, and then we didn't have a horse anymore, and then it was an acre of land that we just completely abandoned. We didn't do anything with it for years. It got worse, it got worse, it got worse, until it was just a big pile of dirt. And I thought a lot of my property had gone that way, just because my family had started as back to the landers kind of in the 60s, and then, you know, life changes and you do other things, and it just got neglected. I thought it was a lost cause. Honestly, the sagebrush had encroached. A lot of it looked like this, and I was pretty despondent. And then at some point, I just started to get wind that, there was stuff that was happening, and people were rebuilding the soil, even though we'd had all these years of drought. And I got wind of this program, and I was down in Mexico. I was doing all the Zoom calls. It was really hard to find Wi-Fi good enough, but I was doing all the Zoom calls from down in Mexico. I put together all the grant under the auspices of the San Cristobal Acequia Association, and they funded us. And so this, you can see the no-till drill is just going into dead ground. And this, I actually started this one a little bit before my grant funded, and this was actually a spring cover crop. It was a spring cover crop that we put in kind of early, but that year, we were still kind of in the midst of that drought that somehow broke mid-June, and it seems like the drought has been over, you know, fingers crossed since then. So the seed sat in the soil dormant, just baking in the sun for like 2.5 months. I had forgotten all about it and had kind of written the whole thing off, and then it started raining like crazy. The whole thing germinated, and within a few months, it was this tall. The reason was, once it started raining, now I had good irrigation. Once it was up a little bit, now I can use my flood irrigation. It's not going to wash the seed away. It really took hold. And just the diversity. There was so much seed in that soil and so many different kinds of things that it all fed each other. And it all ended up working out really brilliantly. That's enough about that. Let me see if I can go on to the next slide. So, this is what's happening right now, right? So, we planted this field and this field at the same time. There was a miscommunication in in the mowing. And for some reason, only half the field got mowed. And my tractor operator was like, well, you know, I can go back and get the equipment. And I thought, you know what, let's do a little experiment. It was hot still, it was a pretty hot summer, and it didn't look like there was a lot of rain in the forecast. And I knew that this side of the field, I wasn't gonna have enough armor on the soil. It was just gonna be bare dirt, which is the worst way to start this kind of stuff. And on the other side, I had all this kochia. And the kochia had already completed most of its life cycle, and it was already dying out. So we went ahead and just seeded both. And in the beginning, and we got some great rains, everything germinated, and in the beginning, the stuff in the kochia was actually out competing this stuff on this side because it was not getting absolutely hammered by the sun every day. It had a little bit of shade. But then as the temperatures really started to cool off, things went back the other way. This stuff was not quite getting enough sun because it was in the kochia, and this stuff wasn't being beaten up by the sun as much and had sun all day long, and it really started to shoot up. All that is to say is if you're planning for one thing, you know, conditions change, and you don't know what the changes are going to be. So try and do a little bit of everything if you can. This crimper, the land trust has this crimper, and I think it's terribly underutilized in this county. Everybody goes after them for their no-till drill, which is amazing, by the way. Thank you, Darian. But this crimper, a lot of people aren't really hip to it. They think it's a little fussy, and it is, right? You really need a good stand in order to make this work. If your cover crop came out really wispy and it's not really thick, you're going to run over with this crimper and it's just going to let it come back up again. But if you have a nice thick stand, this is the best way to terminate it because it will lay it all flat it looks like a doormat or something. And we do everything, in San Cristobal we do everything in a big spiral. We do that, kind of started because Darian's cedar, if you lift it up, it doesn't stop dropping the seed, so you can't do that old-fashioned thing where you just go all the way down the road. So we ended up doing everything in a spiral, which ended up giving us all kinds of other benefits that we had no idea. And one thing is, since we were planting in a spiral, we decided to start crimping in a spiral as well. So that as soon as all this is crimped down, I can come in with that drill seeder and follow the path of the crimper, and it will interseed beautifully because I'm not going against the grain of everything that I've just crimped down. So that is something, once you go through this process and you have an established cover crop and it's time to terminate it, I suggest that thing. And terminating, come to me when it's time to terminate your cover crops, because you do need to keep that in mind. Depending on what's going to happen next with that field, terminating can be a little bit of a tricky business. So this is a field of hairy vetch. Hairy vetch is a great thing. It fixes nitrogen. It does all kinds of wonderful things to your soil, but that's not what's supposed to be in that field right there right now. That hairy vetch I planted 3 years ago, and it was kind of reseeding itself on the slide without me noticing it because I never terminated it before it went to seed. So a couple years ago, you know, I terminated a cover crop and I put a lot of really nice, expensive grazing mix in there. And then the next year, all this stuff started to come up everywhere. And since I wasn't expecting hairy vetch, I thought, oh, that's my sandfoin. I even sent pictures of it to Bruce, bragging about what an amazing stand of sandfoin I had. And he kind of was like, sandfoin looks a lot like hairy vetch. It took me a while to figure it out, right? So this will only happen in places that you're actively irrigating. Like if you're out on the mesa and you pulled up some sagebrush, you're not going to have this problem. But this is my prized field, so I was making sure it was getting tons of water. So it choked out a bunch of really nice grazing seed that would have been there. So it kind of set me back. And so that leads me to this, is that field that was once a lot more robust than this picture, which is right now. It's kind of gone a little wild. The hairy vetch got rid of all my grazing stuff, and you can see there's a crazy amount of mullein in there, which I was really upset about, but our extension agent is a fan of mullein, so I have not gone and attacked it yet, but I may in the spring. But yeah, terminating stuff is, if you are really successful with your field, it's like a nice problem to have, but it is an important thing to consider. And I guess that's it.
Yeah.
Who do we have next?
Next, we have Kevin Whitman.
Yeah, but how do you?
Coming.
Okay, can you hear me? All right, so my project was individual, and what I was trying to do is maximize biodiversity through the reduction of the rangeland sage through using biological and physical remediation strategies. So go ahead and click on the next slide, please. So I had, too many. Can you go back?
Oh, we can use these ones.
There you go. Okay, so yeah, I have to echo what everybody's already been saying. All the staff, Vernon, Peter, Tyler, all very, very helpful in this. And so where I got started is, this is my property out on the plateau. It's 10 acres, former range land. And I first got connected with this by meeting one of Vernon's associates, Daniel Romero, and he told me about, well, they'll come out to your place and they'll do assessments and try to, help you figure out what to do with your property. So I had Vernon and Daniel come out, and they looked it over and they pulled up, different satellite maps and things like that. And they said, yeah, you have a degraded rangeland, and if you want to do anything about it, you're probably going to have to contend with the sage, because the sage has become such a dominant thing. It's a little bit allelopathic, so it prevents other things from growing in it. And I said, okay, well that's great, but how do I get rid of sage? And they said, well, what we typically recommend is people put the tebutyron on it, which is an herbicide that just kills the woody plants, and it doesn't harm anything else. And that will then allow you to get other crops going. But on my property, I'm doing everything by hand. I don't have a tractor. I don't have any of these things. So when I started thinking about the different principles of soil health, I'm like, well, out on the plateau, the sage provides a very valuable function because it covers the soil. We've all seen those dirt devils that rip up everything and blow dirt in everybody's face. So I didn't know. I wasn't too keen on the idea of just putting down this tebutyron on everything, and plus, how do you do that? And how do you pay for that? Because again, it's kind of expensive, even on a small plot of land. And then I also thought about, I want to maximize the biodiversity. I want to minimize disturbance, minimize external inputs. So I was trying to figure out, well, how would I go about doing this? So what I devised is a very small test plot, 16 test plots on the corner of the property. And if you go to the next slide, I'll show you the layout. So basically what I was trying to do is I was trying to figure out, how do you deal with sage? So you could manually clear it. So that was going to be in one of my rows. You could leave it as it is and see what happens. So that's my unchanged. Then I could get this tebutyron and I could follow the manufacturer's specifications, and I just did a precision application. So I looked at their specs and I found the smallest amount of the herbicide I could apply, and I put it around the drip edge of the sagebrush. And then the treated plots were plots that were to the manufacturer's specification of what they recommend applying volume per acre. My test plots, though, were 10 by 10. So this is a very small area. And then so I had those 4 variables, and then I also had other variables, like I'm just going to leave it exposed soil. I'm not going to put anything on the soil. I'm just going to leave it as is. So I'll manually clear it. I'll leave it unchanged. I'll put the tebuthiorin on prescribed or in a precise way, or then I'll just do it treated, and I won't do anything with the soil. Then another plot I did that mulched. So I just went to Tarzan Tree Service or the county municipal landfill, and I got mulch, and I mulched the plots. Then in plot C, all of the plot C's I mulched and I seeded with native plants that I got seed from the native plants of the Southwest. So there were grasses as well as flowers and forbs. And then the other plot D variable was I mulched and I used cover crop that Taos Soil and Water came up with. So those were my variables. Then I also, on all of them, I had just finished some permaculture training and learned about Korean natural farming. So I was making indigenous microorganisms spawn. I would just go to a place where I thought looked healthy. So if it was a grassland in and around the area, I took half a cup of soil and mixed it with 4 gallons of water. I aerated it, and then I put that in a spray bottle, and I sprayed all the plots, the 16 plots, with that indigenous microorganism. And so go ahead and click on the next slide. So part of the paperwork, very important. So my grant total was $2,079. What I asked for from the grant was specifically $704, and then the total matching fund and in-kind contribution was about $1,300. So those, the pink monies were monies that I would put up on my own or time that I equated to that, and then the green monies were the monies that I wanted to be reimbursed. And that's an important part of the grant. I don't know, maybe Dean could talk a little bit about that. There's a percentage that you have to be careful that you're not asking more than basically what you're putting in. So there's some qualifiers there. I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about that or not, Dean.
Yes, sir. Actually, there's no longer a match requirement.
Oh, okay, perfect. Okay, because that was the one thing. All right, excellent. So that's been changed.
Yes, sir.
Very good. All right, so don't worry about that. All right, next slide. So here are some samples of the different plots, and you'll see I labeled them all for what was going on. You can see the mulch and things like that. So during this year, I think Vernon, when I first met with him, he talked about this was degraded rangeland, and it doesn't have much of a water cycle, it doesn't have much of a nutrient cycle, it doesn't have much of a carbon cycle because it's rain dependent and it's seasonal. And so we get these monsoons and we get a snow event. And so now that the grants have been changed and the timeline is different, I think it'll be much easier for people to have their project and to be successful. I don't think I was very successful from the standpoint of I didn't get a lot of things coming up, at least in that short period. I think I applied in May. We started it in August, and then you had to show results by the following March. And that was just too short of a period for that small of a rain event in 2020, 2023. But what I did feel like I had success with, if you want to go ahead and put that next slide. So one of the things that you have to do for the grant is you have to do a soil test. So you'll see these columns, M4, those were manually cleared, column 4, and that meant that any 4s had the cover crop and were mulched. The U4 they were untreated. I didn't put any herbicide on it, and I left it just sage. And again, it had the cover crop and mulch. The P4 columns, those are all plots that had a prescription or prescribed amount of tebutyrin put on it, and they were mulched and also cover cropped. And then the treated had the manufacturer recommendation. But if you look at some of those numbers and some of the things, like, for example, the pH, right? So by just mulching, I think, and then probably infusing a little bit of the indigenous microorganisms, I was able to change the values of my pH, right? And again, it's very small plots. I would love to try to duplicate this, but I went from in the first column of M4, if you look at the pH, it was 8.5. When I did the soil test in June of 22, in August of 23, in June of 23, I think it didn't label it correctly, it was 7.8. And that was a pretty minor thing to do and to get that kind of a change. Or if you look at the untreated areas, I went from a pH of 8 down to 7.5. So, even though I didn't have, the robust fields that Tobias showed, I think it showed I was making an impact by doing these small things. If you look at the nitrogen levels, if you look at some of the other variables that are listed there from the Haney test and the PLFA tests, I did make some progress. So, I think a lot of people will look at those soil tests and think, oh, I don't care about that. But, when you don't get the rain and you don't get the big stands of vegetation that you're expecting, you want to have some kind of success. So I feel like it was successful from that standpoint, and that soil test really helped show that, at least in my mind. And I think there's one more slide. Okay, so that's it. Any questions or anything?
Yeah, sure. How did you manage trying to break down the wood chips from the landfill or Kit Carson? I mean, I've had those out, on dirt areas, and they just stay like wood, but it's hard. I mean, it's a pretty substantial organic material, so I was wondering if you put in like sheep manure in it or something like that, if it would start to turn more towards dirt, or at least get moldy instead of being just dry wood shielding the sun.
Can somebody repeat that? That was closer to the mic. I could barely hear that. Sorry.
The question was, how do you get the mulch to break down in a timely manner, I think, essentially?
Yeah, that's a great question. So part of the grant was I did water. I had a tote, a 250-gallon tote that I would water. But there's been a couple of different research papers written. One of them, the most recent one I read, was Eva Stricker. She is a professor at UNM. And she talked about just by laying mulch on the soil, you'll get it to break down because that biome, your bacteria and your fungi will eat that, and it doesn't take long. Now, granted, it's still there and you can still see it, but it definitely starts. It just has to make contact with the soil. So instead of just oxidizing when it's standing up, if it touches soil, it'll start to break down, with or without water.
I think you're right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I guess it's my turn. My name is Johnathan Hupp. I was asked to present on behalf of the project that we had last year. the business that we run and hope to be profitable one day is Go Tree Orchard in El Prado. First things first, I want to recommend this program. One reason that someone hasn't mentioned it tonight is when you apply, if you're granted funding, you get it pretty close to when you apply for it in that year. So I know there's a lot of soil health or other programs from other agencies that, you know, the funding doesn't come for a year or two. This one's really nice to make a plan, and then if you get it, you implement that plan that year. What we are is an apple orchard, or will be one day. Hopefully, we have currently about 250 trees in the ground. We'll be planting another 335 next year in a high-density system that I'll show some pictures of in a minute. And I put regreening of Southwest El Prado because that's where we are, and those of you that probably know more about the history of El Prado than me know that it was kind of the breadbasket of this area. And it would be really great if we could get back to that greening. This is just a context of where we're at. Maybe kind of hard to see, but the two little red outlines are the parcels that we're talking about. And I want to say I really agree with, and I think climate scientists agree with what Peter Vigil said about, you know, at least greening up the soil, reducing temperatures and increasing rain events in the area. There's a concept called rain sinks, and it would be great if El Prado could be a rain sink. Also in this picture, I just want to show you, just look at the drainage that's coming through. This is the eastern side of, obviously, Taos. The east is obviously the Pueblo. You can see the Rio Acero and the Rio Pueblo coming in, but the dry part up on the top to the left there, which is the west, that's the mesa. And you can really see where that cuts off, and I'm not a hydrologist. I know a little bit about it, but I think what you're actually looking at is just you know, the historic floodplain of both the Rio Acero and the Rio Pueblo. So when we're talking about context, I want to mention what I thought about as our biggest soil health challenges and where we're at. This is a picture of one of our fields on La Cienega Road, and it's maybe kind of hard to see in these pictures, but I'm gonna get in the way, but that's a house. And so this is the mesa that you're looking up at, and essentially we're kind of right on the edge of that floodplain. And so one of the biggest challenges that I think we have is not only the vacant land that's around us, but the wind. Wind causes obviously soil erosion, but it also greatly increases the evapotranspiration of plants. So your plants use more water, things dry out much faster. So one thing that we tried to address in this grant was planting wind barriers on our western border, because the wind just comes right off the mesa and just hammers us right there. So we had two properties that we applied for funding, were granted in this. This is about a 4-acre parcel off of La Cienega Road. Pre-Healthy Soils program, that's a picture of what it looked like. This is in July of 2023. I was irrigating. It's the first time that land had been irrigated, to my knowledge, since the 1970s. You can actually look, and I would recommend everybody do this. The state engineer's website has the hydrographic survey maps for Taos County, and you can look at your property and it lists what was grown at that time. And in the 1960s, this property was listed as fallow at that time. So I just feel very honored to be the steward of it again. What did we do on that property? As I said, we planted a windbreak. This is a road right here, but on the opposite side is our the windward side, if I'm getting that term right. We planted 25 landscape cottonwoods that we got from Gordon Tooley. It has been a challenge to keep them alive without artificial irrigation there and the erosion pressure that we'll talk about, but they're probably about this tall now. Hopefully they'll just keep shooting up and provide a great windbreak in the future. Obviously the other thing we did here was cover cropping. There was a significant, and still is, prairie dog infestation there. This is me smoothing it out with a disker, and afterwards going back in with my tractor and the no-till drill. We planted a 75-25 mixture of winter rye and prairie vetch. And because I'm a terrible record keeper, I'm like Mr. Whitman up there, who I'm very proud of your record keeping. I'm actually surprised I don't have any photos of it. But what were the results on the La Cienega Road parcel? There's a top section that actually borders the Acequia Madre del Rio Acero. It actually did pretty well. We had probably in July of this year, the rye had probably gotten up to about, somewhere waist, chest high. Did pretty well. As I said, the landscape cottonwoods are doing okay. But the bottom 2.5 to 3 acres were just decimated by prairie dogs. We got great germination, and probably by about April or May, all that was just gone. Lessons learned: get the prairie dogs out first. If you buy me a beer later, I'll tell you all about my struggles with prairie dogs. Millicent Rogers Road, we have a parcel there, which is going to be our main orchard property. Probably driven by it, and you see me out there in honk. But this is before HSP, or Health Sales Program implementation. The picture on the left here is what it looked like basically before I started trying to farm it. The little bunch grasses there were in a portion that got good water. I actually, because I'm an idiot, by hand removed a big patch of red willows. Don't ever do that, do it with machinery. And on the right, that's the summer of 2022. That was my first attempt at cover cropping. And that is Sudan grass, this is pre the program, but I'll talk about that because I'm such a huge fan of it. Some more pictures of Sudan grass. That stuff got up to like this tall, and I cut it once and it grew back probably by early October to somewhere about this height again. If you're needing to create biomass, create rootstock in your soil that's previously been fallow, like we did, I haven't found a better option yet, but obviously my experience is probably a little more limited than some of you here. I would also say that it's a relative of corn and sorghum, so it is frost sensitive. They say that you're supposed to plant it 2 weeks past the corn planting date for your county. So I would say sometime in June. But I think one reason it's maybe been ignored here as a cover crop is because of that. But I think one reason that it does well is because we get really intense sun and heat in June. And it just loves that crap. It just shoots up. So give it a shot. So what did we actually do for a healthy soils implementation? That's me on the left, using the no-till drill again to plant the same 75-25 winter rye and hairy vetch. And then on the right there, that is me planting on this property's western boundary, another windbreak. And on this property, I tried something a little bit different. I used landscape cottonwoods again, but interplanted with Kansas hawthorn and Tartarian maple. These are again recommendations from Gordon Tooley, but the idea is that you have a taller plant and then a shrubbier one. Just like breaks up the wind a little bit more, because I guess if you have one layer that the wind is coming from, it can create like an eddy, I think it is, behind it. So trying something else. Results, my property there is doing great. This is October 2023, so probably in late, or maybe the picture on the right might be November, but that's probably 2 or 3 weeks after doing the no-till drill. And you can see the lines of green where I got germination. I will say I am very blessed to have incredible water on that property. The ditch is flowing right now, so I can pretty much irrigate whenever I want, and I did irrigate after I drilled that seed. Tobias, you talked about the seed getting blown away. I will say one thing that I found with the no-till drill is the great thing about it is, as long as you don't like blast the seed, it actually doesn't get disturbed by flood irrigation. But maybe that's just because the depth is set right, but I actually haven't messed with the depth on the lamb truss drill yet. This is after the winter, April 2024, that same property. You can see the winter rye. If it was better resolution, you could start to see the vetch coming up through. I think the cool thing about the vetch and the rye mix is that the vetch actually like spirals up the rye stalks. It's pretty and provides it like kind of a viney environment. Other thing I want to say about winter rye, I got that recommendation from Tyler's predecessor. I'm forgetting his name.
David Gilroy.
There you go. Also, if you look at, it's the USDA, is it SARE? Sustainable Agricultural Research something? Like, talks about how great it is, but I think what winter rye really does great here is that it uses our winter moisture. And you get green up really quick in the spring. So this was probably taken late May, early June, so at the very end of the grant period, and it was just the whole property is just incredible, staying like that. It's just almost too much, which leads me to my next topic, like Mr. Duncan was talking about. So you've got to have a plan to manage your cover crop residue, especially with that rye or the sorghum, sedan grass. It creates such an incredible amount of biomass that you have to figure out some way that you're going to get in whatever it is you're doing next. I will have to respectfully disagree. I tried the crimper. I was not a fan.
Did you fill it with water?
I did. It did. You can see it crimped it.
Yeah.
To me, it just sat on the soil, and until last week when I dissed it in, absolutely zero decomposition. That could be site-specific to me, I don't know. I also suspect that that's just a reality of farming in the high mountain west where it's very arid. I think maybe if we're east of the Mississippi and it's laying on the soil and it's tons of moisture in the air and the soil, then maybe it's going to break down quicker, but I don't know that I'm going to use it again. Post healthy soils, this picture was the barley and field pea mix that I did this summer. Unfortunately, it was outside of the grant window. I understand that NMDA has fixed that now, and this would have been covered. But I will also say, this was a little bit of an experiment of mine. I did not crimp this field. I actually mowed it and tilled it. And this field did way better with the barley. I know that tillage is a dirty word sometimes, but I actually think it has a place sometimes. But I also will admit that that's probably site-specific and goal-specific.
And sorghum.
And what's that?
And sorghum Sudan grass specific.
Yes, and that has a very high, what's that word, allelopathic content. I actually had trouble in the summer of 23 before the grant. I had trouble getting things to get in this field because I think there was still so much sorghum or sedan grass residue and that chemical was still in there prohibiting growth. Nothing to think about. Lessons learned. Sorry for the graphic picture. Right seed, right time and place, and right application method. I see a lot of people trying to broadcast and do it at seed at any random time. You need to know what seed you're planting. Is it a cool season, annual, or perennial? Is it a warm season? What's the best time for it? Can you time it with your moisture? And how are you applying it? Frankly, I think here, if you're broadcasting it, you're just praying that you're going to get results. As I said again, the high mountain west, the arid west, you got to get that seed in there, tuck it in with a blanket, and really make it happy, I think. How do you manage cover crops again? As I said there, I think tillage has its place. I think disking stuff in actually can have a place. What I am trying to do is increase my soil organic matter, like vastly, because the places that I farm, was very low. And I think if you crimp and you just leave it there, yes, most of your soil organic matter, the scientists say, comes from the roots dying, but you might as well try to get that green manure in from the top. Otherwise, in my case, the damn prairie dogs are going to take it, or the wind's going to take it, so you might as well, you know, put it back in your soil if you can. Rodents. One thing I learned is that if you increase your soil health and it gets softer, not only do prairie dogs love that, and I'll say something else about that, but guess what comes after that? The gophers, the voles, the field mice. So I have had a hell of a time this past summer trapping gophers, as you can see, and we have a lot of field mice and voles, which, you know, also one of the comments about that people just need to think about is that it's great not to mow a lot, to let things reseed, to let the pollinators have it, but if you don't mow, guess what comes in? Guess what can't get in? The rodents come in, and then who can't see the rodents to eat them? The owls, the hawks, and everything. So managing the ecosystem is hard. The other thing I want to say about prairie dogs. A lot of people tell you that if you cover crop your land and you get a tall stand of crop going, that they don't want to be in there. My experience, because probably that most of my parcels are surrounded, at least on 3 sides, by vacant or fallow land, is that if you plant those cover crops, they say, that's a goddamn buffet, I'm coming in there. And it is an invitation. Now that may not be the same anywhere, but that's been my experience. I will also say that I have found that they love any type of like grain-based forage crop, rye. They like the Sudan grass. They love the barley, wheat. They don't like legumes. They have not touched my clover. They didn't touch the vetch, and they didn't touch the field pea. I don't know. Suggestions. I forget the individual's name from NNDA that was here, but tell me if maybe this program's been corrected, or this part of the program's been corrected, but when I applied, I asked for funding to put in this travel system, which I did, but that funding was denied because it was main crop related. I would just pose the question to NNDA, maybe this question should go to our legislators. Why can a livestock farmer get fencing if a vegetable or plant-based farmer can't get a trellis system to use their land more efficiently? Just a gripe I have, but that's it. Thanks for putting up with me.
Thank you for all of our speakers tonight. I'm hoping everybody got something out of it. Is there any questions for any of our speakers? We have a few minutes to answer some questions. No?
I want to ask Hupp a question. So when you do the no-till drilling and keeping all the seeds are kind of in the dirt, a small amount, but you're using irrigation water, how are you managing the irrigation water to spread it out and not reposition all the seeds? I mean, it tends to run down the little rows if you kind of do it gently, but are you using like PVC pipe with the windows on it, or?
I've actually gone through a variety of methods for irrigation, and as my soil health has improved, I would say that my irrigation water spreads much more evenly.
Yeah.
With the no-chill drill, I haven't had a problem that it just only follows little grooves. I mean, like right out of your press out of your head gate, if you put all your pressure right there and you've got some drilled area, like literally 2 feet from it, like you're gonna have a problem, but it spreads out after 5 feet or so. It hasn't been an issue for me at least.
It's also gonna matter what exactly your soil is like when you go to irrigate it.
Okay.
So the field that I showed in the very beginning,
yeah,
it was drilled in there and the drill covered everything up really nicely. But I had this much, about 2 inches of talcum powder. It just wanted to blow away. If you looked at it wrong, it was just going to disperse. So there was no way I was gonna be able to flood irrigate that, and just because it'd been so long since anything had happened there. But once it was even this big, you know, then the roots are pretty far deep in the ground.
Yeah.
Now you can just irrigate, no matter how weak your soil is at the time, it'll really take it. Also, my property is on a slope, so I have real problems irrigating without losing a little bit of soil anyway.
Yeah, so managing the slope and then the angle of the road in relationship to the slope, you want the water to go across but not downhill.
But once you've got something established, it's amazing what you can get away with.
Another tried and true technique might be something on the lines of doing a fall cover crop of winter wheat, planting in maybe mid-October, let winter do its thing, let it germinate in the spring, and maybe either graze it, brush hog it, whatever it may be, but leave the stands high enough to where you have some cover, come in with a no-till drill and plant whatever crop you're planting, intending to plant. And that way, when you do irrigate, the stands of the winter wheat will kind of act as little dividers to make sure your water spreads out and keep your soil in place.
Well, thank you everybody for coming out on this cold, snowy day.
This question is for Vernon. If you've done a project with NRCS through Whip, and you had a conservation plan, 10 years ago, does that still apply for now, or do I have to update it? Can I use the same conservation plan?
So as far as conservation, you have back in your eco project that we did with you for the, I think it's for irrigation, pipeline, pasture, hayland planting, cross fencing, if I remember correctly. So your conservation plan was for those practices. So when it comes to the NMDA Healthy Soils Grant, it will be based upon what you're planning to do next. It will be the next step.
That answers my question.
Thanks. Not so much of a question, more of a comment. Really, especially if you're on the Acequia land grant, get your UEI because you can access not just the healthy soils. MDA has another awesome grant program, noxious weeds. The land trust this year, we were able to get $50,000 for noxious weeds and $25,000 for healthy soils. And we like to say that noxious weeds is paying us to do the treatments, and then healthy soils is paying us to plant. So there's a lot of resources out there for Acequias, Merceds, other eligible entities. So cannot stress UEI enough.
And be sure to take your surveys out to Flood in the back once everything is done.
I'm not sure who to ask this to, but does the funding cover hard costs and soft costs, or just hard costs?
What do you mean by that?
Like, does it cover people's time? Does it cover just materials?
It will cover a contract.
That's right,
Yeah.
So if you want to hire a tractor operator,
to come and drill, it'll pay for that. I pay my guys $100 an acre to do all over San Cristobal, and it pays for that easily. It'll pay to rent the drill from Darien. So there are ways to do it. It's pretty tricky to get it so that it will pay you to do your own stuff, but subcontractors for sure.
And something that wasn't mentioned is Taos Soil does have a list of contractors. So you can go check their office, and they have a list of contractors in Taos County. And don't forget Darien's no-till drill.
Yeah, and to Peter's point earlier, Vernon's point earlier, come to us early when you know that you want to use the seeder. We get quite a lot of requests, and this year was kind of a scramble, so everyone was trying to get stuff done before the 31st. So the sooner you can let us know when you want the drill, we can get you in the pipeline, and we can work on getting it out to your property. Thank you.
If nobody has any other questions, We have some upcoming events, they're up here. Tomorrow night, we're gonna have Intro to Electric Fencing, which is by the Taos County Extension Service. Next Wednesday, we're gonna have a listening session. It's by De La Tierra and also Extension Service. Friday, November 15th, we have innovative grazing on public lands. And right now, as Jesse said earlier, we have the regenerative ranching mentorship applications are open, and we're going to be doing a holiday toy drive at TCDC. You can drop them off at any of our events, or you can drop them off at their office. I think that is it. Thank you everybody for coming out.